Davis, and he joins us here in studio. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, McGraw. Thanks for having me.
We're talking off the air here. Who knew you were a Raiders fan growing up?
That's probably going to be the death nail of my political career, but huge Raiders fan growing up.
And you became a Raiders fan growing up in Southern Illinois because?
Actually lived in Des Moines, Iowa at the time.
Okay.
But I was watching Super Bowl 11. Was the first football game I ever watched. And I became a Raider fan that day and have been ever since.
Well, you know what? For all of the problems with that story, the fact is you're loyal to them after all these years says something.
And after the last 12 years, that's been tough.
But you had a pretty good run, though.
We did.
You had a good run, yeah. All right, now let's get some news because
the Raiders are moving here.
Then, well, we'll hold off. Congressman Davis says Raiders moving to St. Louis, film at 11. All right, so you're Southern Illinois, and you are. When redistricting happened, you sort of took half of Shimkus's district, or they sort of realigned it a little bit?
They realigned it. So instead, in years past, you always had two members of Congress from the Metro East, John Shimkus and Jerry Costello. Now you have three, because Madison County got cut into three parts. So you have Shimkus, then the old Costello district, which is now represented by Mike Bost, and I'm the new guy that comes down from the Champaign, Illinois area, Bloomington, Illinois area, into Edwardsville and Collinsville.
Also Granite City.
I don't have Granite. Mike Bost has Granite City.
Okay, but Granite City is an important part of your district.
It's an important part of the Metro East, and a lot of folks that live in my district work at places like U.S. Steel and other factories.
So explain what just happened with steel over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, it's been an issue I've been dealing with for the last 20 years. In my last job, steel dumping hasn't just come onto the scene recently to affect plants like U.S. Steel and Granite City. And I got to give Mike Bost, my colleague that represents that area, a lot of credit. He helped lead the charge where we're hopefully changing the way that the adjudication process takes place to allow companies like U.S. Steel that's located in Granite City to be able to compete on the global market against China dumping cheap steel into America.
Okay, go back. Dumping cheap steel. How does that work? What do they do?
Well, what they do is countries like China will subsidize their steel industry and dump a bunch of cheap steel into America when they know it's a violation of trade agreements.
Right.
So we'll file a complaint. It takes so long for that complaint to get adjudicated. By the time it's ruled in our favor, then the steel's already out. The damage has already been done. So we're trying to shorten that time period, and it has allowed U.S. Steel to be able to look positively into the future and hopefully continue to invest in Granite City Steel.
Who buys that cheap steel? Are there any penalties to buying cheap steel? Because obviously you know it's bad steel.
Well, it's cheap steel, it's bad steel. Companies are buying it, obviously, because it's more cost-effective. But in this case, we're going to actually strengthen the enforcement provisions. And Mike and I and John Shimkus have sat down with Paul Ryan, who's leading up our trade package. And Paul has committed to us that they're going to have language exactly like the Senate pop up in the next few weeks. So we're excited about it.
But if I'm a company and I hire an illegal to do some work for me as a company gets in trouble. If I'm a company and I buy cheap steel knowing that it's illegally dumped in America, is that illegal?
No, it is not.
Should it be?
Yeah, I think that's something we should talk about. But in this case, the existing processes in place needed to be shored up.
Right.
And those that are in the steel industry in this country feel that that's a great move.
This has been an ongoing problem for years, has it not?
Oh, it has. I remember back in the 90s when Bill Clinton introduced steel tariffs because Canada and China were dumping cheap steel into this country.
President Bush did something very similar, too.
He did, yeah.
And then ultimately those tariffs were ruled illegal. But to play the game, you have to tit for tat, if you will.
And that's exactly why, now that we have another trade package coming up, this is the time to correct the deficiencies in existing law. Mm-hmm. And that's why Representative Bost led the charge with John Shimkus and I to make sure that we put better provisions in place. The Senate just passed those exact provisions. Paul Ryan is committed to put the exact same language into the customs enforcement package, which is part of this trade package. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, that language will become law as long as the president signs it. It's not conferenceable. They can't change it when they go to a conference committee.
Is this all part of the same thing that's going on with this fast track and this Singapore and this Far East stuff?
It is, and it's Trade Promotion Authority. And in this case, if you don't like existing Trade Promotion Authority, if you think that it gives the president too much power, if you think that it allows steel dumping, then the thing we have to do is change it. And in this new version, we could call it kind of slow track because it gives Congress more authority than what we have now. It actually makes the process more transparent. And it, just as we were talking with the steel issue, it protects more American jobs than what is currently on the table.
So you're in favor of this, and you're in favor of giving this authority to President Obama, or to the president, whoever it may be.
This more restrictive authority, absolutely. I'm in favor of cleaning up the process and in turn fixing a problem that could have adversely affected 2,000 people and their families in southwestern Illinois because U.S. Steel was going to close that facility, and now they're not.
Okay, the larger question, though, are you in favor of this fast-track authority for President Obama?
Well, yes, I'm in favor of this trade promotion package, which includes the steel provisions. Yeah. It includes more transparency. It includes better worker protections than where we're at currently, that the president can currently use existing trade promotion authority for. So, yes, I'm in favor of putting new rules and regs in place that will make the process more transparent than what we have now, and in turn will give any presidential administration a better idea and give the American people a better idea of what this package will look like.
What's so interesting about this individual topic is that yesterday's enemy is today's friend. The far right and the far left are on the same side of this. They don't want to give President Obama this, and the men and women in the middle do. So yesterday's enemy is today's friend.
Well, this isn't the only issue where we see that happen. And look, I didn't vote for President Obama either time. I disagree with him on a wide variety of issues, both politically and policy-wise. But the same Constitution that I raised my right hand to uphold and protect is the same Constitution that allowed him to get elected twice. So that means we can either fight the Constitution or we can go work together to try and ensure that we put better policies in place. And that's exactly what this trade package will do for him or any other president.
The Far East, Asia, the Pacific Rim, that is the fastest growing part of the world. Free trade opens up all sorts of possibilities for our products to be sold over there. That's what you're thinking long term, right? I mean, this isn't this year's problem. This is going to be 20, 30 years from now.
I have a Caterpillar facility in Decatur, Illinois that I represent. They make large mining trucks. Well, America's government has said we're not going to allow as much mining because we can't burn as much American coal in America anymore. If we don't export those trucks, the UAW workers that man that facility don't have jobs. So trade is crucial, not just for my manufacturing sector in my district, but also for the ag sector. And all you have to do is look at the locks and dams up and down the Mississippi River. That's where American coal's going. It's going out of America, out into the open ocean. And if you stand on the Mel Price Lock and Dam over walkway, you look down and most of that's coal coming out of districts like mine. So if we don't trade coal in the open market, then my coal mining families don't have jobs either. And this package will be a more transparent, better worker protected package than what we have now.
That is Rodney Davis, Congressman, Republican from Southern Illinois. Is this your third term?
Second.
Second term.
My second.
What has been the biggest, or what do you think is the biggest misconception the public has about their elected leaders?
That all we do is fight. You know, there are a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle that work together on a wide variety of issues that don't get out into the news cycle. But they're crucial policy changes to allow most Americans to enjoy government not intervening in every aspect of their life, and a wide variety of issues that we address every single day when we're in Washington.
The philosophy is that everyone is corrupt and that lobbyists and lobbyist money rule the day. True or false?
False.
False. Do lobbyist money have a large influence?
No.
Really?
No, I mean, you look at me as an example. The last campaign cycle, my primary election, general election, I spent $3.6 million that we had to raise on our own from donors. And the maximum amount of a lobbyist PAC can give you is $5,000. So if you're going to sell your soul politically for $5,000 in the scheme of a $3.6 million race, that's crazy. No one does that. It's perception, and it's what's used to try and, unfortunately, win elections.
What's the biggest thing you learned because you worked for Shimkus for years.
I did.
What's the biggest thing you learned now that your name's on the front door?
Boy, a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to Monday morning quarterback these interviews than it is to actually do them.
Well, I'm never wrong when I'm asking the questions.
Well, exactly. I will tell you, I learned that Washington's not nearly as strategic as I thought it was.
Huh.
And instead of being frustrated by that, I actually see opportunity.
So people think Washington's smarter than they are.
I think people want to assume that there's somebody as a puppet master, making all these decisions for a reason.
Right.
That's just not the case. It's a lot more fly by the seat of your pants, which allowed guys like Mike Bost and me and John Shimkus to begin to put forth language changes. Because if Washington was more strategic, we wouldn't have that opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Rodney Davis, and thank you for getting dressed up for the interview.
Just for you, McGraw.
Are you mowing the yard afterwards? What are you doing after the interview?
I'm actually flying to D.C., and my kids, my 8th grade boys, are out there on a school trip, and I'm taking them on a tour of the Capitol in 90 degrees.
There you go.
I'm dressed for it.
Congressman, thanks for coming in. Always welcome.
Thank you.
You got it. 949, Big 550, KTRS. Ted Drews, ladies and gentlemen.